Geo Gearheads.
Welcome to the Geo Gearheads episode 407. I'm Daryl W4 back as usual with Chris of the Northwest. Chris, welcome back.
Howdy, folks. How are you?
Doing well. Better than StreamYard is tonight. It's very laggy.
Seems to be a little bit laggy. It can be from time to time. You know, that's because the internet is just a series of tubes, and sometimes tubes get clogged. So we need a digital plumber to help us. If you're a digital plumber, let us know.
Not sure what a digital plumber is, but we'd certainly welcome one.
A series of tubes.
I thought that was done by software, though.
Oh, maybe software is the new digital plumber.
Oh, there you go. All right. Well, maybe it is
plumb tuckered out.
It is a randomized show. XC.
That's cross country.
Yes. Or cross caching.
I don't know. XC is the abbreviation for cross country.
It is, and a few other things, but we'll go with cross country.
How about 90 of them?
No. Well, it is 90 of them, but I like XC.
Okay,
it sounds so much more cool. Much more interesting. Meanwhile, White Coaster says happy show CDIVV
407. No,
no, that doesn't work, does it?
No,
or does it? Ooh, we're bad at this. No, I think that's right. 407.
You have to do 500 minus 100 plus 7.
Yeah. 500. Yeah.
Why don't we know Greek numerals? Roman numerals. Sorry.
I'm getting so.
Why don't we know Roman numerals after 407 episodes? We use Roman numerals on every episode, Daryl.
Almost every, not every. Ashley gets version numbers.
Oh, okay.
We do the same thing with most of the software. They get the version numbers.
Let's say we've used them for 390 episodes. We should know Roman numerals.
Probably about that. But White Coaster suggests that Mario would be a digital plumber.
See, I knew there was a digital plumber. That makes Mario relevant in this day and age. No longer is he just the Game Boy Advance.
Oh, speaking of which, did you see that new analog mobile console that's coming out?
No.
Oh, it's like $200 is supposed to be the list price, and it does Game Boy cartridges with a really high-res screen. It does Bluetooth controllers.
Why would really high-res for Game Boy?
Well, because it's not going to be just Game Boy. You can get converter cartridges. And it's supposed to do links and a bunch of other things too. But I think you have to buy all of the converter carts. You get the Game Boy for free, and then everything else you have to get.
So your first one free.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm just trying to correlate this to another thing where they tend to give you the first one free, Daryl.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it's really cool. I'm kind of geeked for it, but we'll see what it's actually like when it ships. I kind of like these retro gaming things that are making their rounds.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, the problem is I never played
in the pistols.
Try that again.
Does it have Duck Hunt with the pistols?
No.
No, I'm not buying it.
Okay. All right. Quick reminder for those who got the going caching cards, specifically number 202. Just a reminder that we do have a pretty easy puzzle buried in there. Right now, we've only received one correct entry. And there's only a short time left. So dig into those cards and see if you can solve the puzzle for your very own treasure.
Ooh, it's a treasure hunt.
And it is a treasure hunt.
Like going caching without having to go out in the nasty elements.
Right.
Okay, I said going caching, but I don't mean the event going caching, like going outside and actually geocaching.
Okay.
Is that better? I realized I had a double entendre there. And neither of them were dirty. Well,
and the first thing I thought when you said elements was like chemicals.
Oh. Okay.
And Ian says, seriously, just one entry from all the way back in August.
Well, one correct entry.
Correct. Yes, we've only gotten one correct entry. And I think we had allocated 10 prizes after the go look back. So you still
there's
have a
9
good chance
prizes
of
to
winning.
be claimed, folks. 9. That's like, X1 in Roman numerals. No, it's 1X.
Yeah.
I was seeing if you would notice, Daryl. Yeah, that's what I was doing.
Sure. That's what it was all about.
Oh, Daryl. You know what else starts with a D? Team Demp. The Demp part of it. They sent an email, and I'm using this. I'm just hard segueing right into the podcast, trying to overcome that early start there. Team Demp sent an email that said, I listened to the podcast today on my commute, and I thought I'd send feedback on 2 items I picked up on. Number 1, Waze was acquired by Google in June of 2013. The show mentioned 2 years or so ago, but it's been 6. Wow. It's like 2 digital years or something.
Well, yeah, and I remember that conversation, and I think we said like 2 or maybe 3 years ago, but yeah, that's like double what we were talking about. So
yeah, or triple.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they acquired it. It didn't have a lot of impact because even if Google is using Waze or Waze is using Google, either way, it's one of those things that I'm sorry if I misspoke. Thank you, Team Demp, for correcting me. Now, the second thing he says is it might have been the second time I heard mention that you need to get the Oregon 650T to get Wi-Fi Bluetooth, but that's not accurate. The difference between the 700 and 750 is the 750 includes an 8 megapixel camera. The 750T adds topo maps on top of that. With the exception of the camera, the 700 does what the 750T does, including Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity to your phone. Thank you for clarifying that. I guess I didn't realize that. I don't have one of these devices, so I assumed it was only the top of the line model, the 750T, that had this feature.
Well, and I had gone from a chart when I went and built my recommendation list that didn't list the 700 as doing the Basecamp, and actually it's not called Basecamp. It's called the Garmin Connect. It didn't support the wireless Garmin Connect. So yeah, I looked back and it does look like that's true, which means basically we're going to strip the 750 from our recommended list. And I don't really recommend the 700 anymore either. It's that
Right.
star, if you wanted the Bluetooth stuff, but that Bluetooth Wi-Fi connectivity just doesn't really work well enough to make it worth doing.
Interesting. I had really hoped that would have been the holy grail to push us to keeping GPSRs.
Well, and I think it still could be, but it's not right yet. Very unfortunate, though.
Well, that it is unfortunate, but we have more email because this is a randomized show. We love your feedback. Daryl, where can they send feedback?
They can send that to us at geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com. Or there's a form on our website, too.
Yeah.
So if you go to cachemaniacs.com, there's a handy little contact form that you can use to do that.
So if you're using the 750T or any model in that 700 family, let us know what you think about it, because you know what? I'm really interested. Okay. Enough with that. Let's get on to another email, if you don't mind. This one comes from L&N Railroad. One option I would like to suggest is the Garmin 64ST. I was trying to read that as the 64st, and I know that's not a proper abbreviation. Now that the 66 has been introduced, it's possible to get the 64 ST at a reduced price. After using the Colorado 300, you remember that with the click wheel, and the Oregon 550T, the touchscreen, I was glad to get a GPS that used buttons again, like my Garmin GPS 12, my first GPS. The selling point for me that persuaded me to, or the selling point for me that persuaded me to buy the 64 ST was there was essentially no limit to the number of caches you can load using the GGZ file format. And Daryl, we'll talk about the GGZ file format after this. But let's go on. It's almost impossible to find geocaching specs in Garmin literature and web pages. But I believe the cache limit is actually in the hundreds of thousands, much more than what I would load. But it can't hold every cache in the world. It will hold more than I can download and keep updated using all of the pocket queries, though. I have been very happy with the 64 ST. The 300, that's the Colorado, and the 550T, the Oregon, were both improvements for me, but they would still do things to annoy me occasionally. I have never had the 64 ST do anything to annoy me. And, I'm taking a sidebar here. That's really important from a GPSR. You don't see that too often in a GPSR that just works the way you want it to. Okay, back to the L&N Railroad. Battery life on a handhold is a big plus for me. I'm sorry, a handheld is a big plus for me, especially on a trip where charging lots of devices can be a hassle. A fresh pair of lithium AA cells in the GPS means I probably won't have to change batteries on most trips I take. And if I do need fresh batteries, swapping out a pair of AA cells is simple. I sometimes cache using the app, but I find the GPS handier in some situations. The GPS screen is much better in direct sunlight. Also, when I'm caching, while traveling with non-cachers, it's easier just to click found on the GPS and do the logging when I get home instead of taking a little more time fooling with the app. I generally find the app more time consuming to use, but the app and a separate GPS are both tools, and I try to pick the best tool for the job.
All right, so I did look that up. The 64 ST was an awesome unit, but it is no longer a continued unit. So the replacement for it is actually the 64 SX, and it's $350.
Okay.
But they also have a CSX if you want a camera built into it. But when I saw that one, I'm thinking, you know what? Are they trying to play off of our nostalgia and the love for the 60 CSX?
Oh, well, C meaning camera, right?
Right. In this case, it means camera.
Yeah.
Back then, it meant color.
Yes. And you just assume color now. I don't see the need for a camera in a GPSR.
No, I would avoid it.
For a camera in a GPSR. Now, I realize it's durable, it's rugged, it's battery operated, meaning like the two AA cells, or perhaps a rechargeable unit like rechargeable battery like was it the Montana?
The Montana had it. The newer Oregons have it. The 66 has it, where it's essentially on most of these. There are some that had the lithiums, but most of these is just a NIM cell where it's a couple of NIM batteries strapped together with some special stuff to charge them. And at least on, I believe it was the 750 that I have, it is literally just a limit switch that has to be poked. So if you wanted to go and tape them together, you could do it just right and hit the limit switch so you could charge in the
you want
GPSR. What's that?
I on my Oregon, I use the Eneloop batteries.
Right.
And those are rechargeable. So I have taken the cap off of a drink and cut out just the top portion circle that's very flat.
Right.
Put that underneath my batteries, and that hits that limit switch. And it holds in place very nicely. And it'll allow me to charge the batteries from a UPS. Yeah, I'm sorry.
From a USB
cable in my car.
Albeit very slowly.
Right, but it will charge. Or, if that's what you're taking on a trip, you just take one USB charger. I don't know where I came up with the other three initials. Sorry, people. You just take one of those, you charge it up, and you can charge it overnight. So there are ways around that.
Let's take a quick detour, though. Roger did comment on YouTube that everything Garmin that he has that's supposed to connect to his iPhone connects once and then never more. That is not a problem I've had with the Garmin units and Bluetooth, but I definitely can see that problem happening. I have other problems like it never actually sends the correct data back and forth.
I would rather have it not connect than send the wrong data.
Well, and the worst part is with the 750, on and off, it depends on the version of the firmware and apparently like what time of day I boot it up. It will actually screw with the location on the iPhone itself.
Okay.
So I haven't tried it in about 9 months, I think. So I really need to get that updated and check it out.
Daryl, I am to the point I need to pull out my GPSR and start using it. I've been caching with my phone and I find it more and more frustrating as my iPhone 8S. I look at them now. Let me tell you, during Going Ape, I had a booth right next to Cashly. And, I said, the only issue I have is that if I'm running another mapping program, I find that my location in Cashly is jumping all over. Now, that, there was some interaction going there. If I look at the map on Cashly and I see the point of the cache, I'm here, and then I'm here, then I'm here, and I'm like, are you kidding me? How am I supposed to use this? Now, since then, within a week, he contacted me and said, hey, I fixed that. And sure enough, it's rock solid now, but I'm still looking at the map. I know I'm right there at ground zero. I found the cache, but it shows me 25 up to 50 feet away. And it's one of those that I can't use the phone when I get to ground zero to show me even which direction it is. So I need to pull out that GPSR, load up caches, and start using that just to get me in the right direction. This is getting very frustrating for me. And I'm just thinking today, I've got a GPSR. Why am I not using it?
Well, and you mentioned that you have an 8S, but I think you meant 8 Plus, correct?
Oh, 8 Plus. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Okay. So it's an older unit now. It's not that old. They still actually make them.
Older code, but I was about to clear it. Yes, it's old, but it should, for car navigation, it's fine. But it's one of those things that for geocaching, I find it very frustrating, and I'm not convinced that a new Apple phone is going to get me any better.
Well, have you done the communication reset on it yet?
Several times, yes.
Okay. Because that's one thing I found generally fixes my problem. But I've had, it wasn't my 8, but my previous 7, that when they replaced it, I had GPS problems. And the original 7 that I got had no GPS. Like the GPS literally wasn't there.
Not that it didn't work properly. It did not work at all.
It wasn't reporting anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the only location information it had was off of Wi-Fi. And the thing that really frustrated me was when I was first playing with it, trying to figure out what the problem was. It was actually like moving around because I was testing it inside in the mall because it was a very cold winter that year. And it was actually moving around in like roughly the right spot because it was working off of the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So when you turn off the Wi-Fi, it doesn't go to GPS. It still uses the Wi-Fi as the location supplement. You have to actually go and turn off Wi-Fi in the settings, not from the control panel. And it was new OS still when I got it, so
yeah,
I forgot about that. And it's like I go outside and all of a sudden it stops working. What the heck? And then I realized, oh yeah, it does use Wi-Fi even when the Wi-Fi is off. So, all right, let's move on. We have one more piece of feedback from last week's show. This comes from Mike D. Thanks for the show yesterday. Points are rising. Garmin 66ST. Pleased to report my unit is doing well, getting better with the software updates. I can now confidently load a pocket query and software upgrades wirelessly. Garmin Nuvi replacement. I recently got a new Garmin Drive Smart 55, which is the next generation, I think. Looks like the Nuvi, but using the new phone app, Garmin Drive via Bluetooth, you get live traffic plus up-to-date POIs, including parking, gas, shopping, weather, and lots more. You can choose choose a destination on the app at home, and it automatically loads to the unit when you join the car. It means that they are using the power of the web to focus data on the unit in real time. Lots of benefits. Great piece of kit. So, Drive Smart 55 if you want to do the car nav unit, and the 66ST, he's saying his is doing much better. So that's a good sign.
Nice. So the 66th.
Yep. Yeah. Now the eye is a little bit different. That's the one that I was saying you might want to look at if you really want the InReach in your GPSR. So that one, I'm still hearing fairly recently lots of problems with it, but it's a little bit different than the 66.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want that handheld, the 66 might be a good option. I would probably go, the bigger handheld. I would probably still go with that 64SX, to be honest. That's not one we even mentioned on the show when we were going over it. But if you do want something more than the 32, I think it is, the e-trucks that we mentioned, then you should probably look at those 64 models because they're cheaper, and the software and hardware seems to be preferred for most of the cachers. It's just a little bit better proven, better flushed out hardware than the 66. And it's cheaper too.
Gotta love cheaper.
Yeah. And well, one of the big things is, I believe, and I have to, find some of the teardown videos, but I believe that the 64 actually does have the quad helix and the 66 does not. So you get a better antenna on the 64 than on the 66.
How do you know better?
Well, and that's the other problem, really. It's
different.
The quad helix is a stronger antenna, we'll say. So it's better at pulling those signals. But if you're more of an urban cacher, you're going to have more problems typically with a quad helix than you will with like a patch.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 66 had some other coil or something antenna that I don't remember what it was, but they were saying it doesn't really work as well as the quad helix, but still a little better than the patch. So something kind of in between.
I would assume Garmin by now, and again, it's an assumption, would have these antennas down to a science. Hey, we're going to go with this one because it's so much better. Or, why change from the quad helix if it's the best option available? So,
well, the quad helix is more expensive and introduces more errors when you're in a city or in a canyon. So
it's more expensive, but we're talking, pennies.
Yeah. But I think it's actually more than that, because you're probably talking better chipsets to support it as well. Mm-hmm. So it's probably more than just the antenna, but I think, they're getting away from the quad helix anyway.
It's just fun to say quad helix.
It is.
Oh, it's a quad.
And it was a big marketing thing.
Oh, yeah.
Let's move on to GPSs themselves. How's that sound?
This is fun. Now, we have talked about the GPS 3 satellites for how long, Daryl?
About 2 years, I think.
All of these randomized episodes, it seems.
Yeah, not quite. We were talking about the 2S since the first of the randomized episodes, though.
That's true. Okay, so the 3s are in orbit and working. In fact, SV-01, Space Vehicle 01, that's the first of the GPS-3 satellites, is in a holding state pending readiness by the second Space Ops Squadron. Isn't that cool? The second Space Operations Squadron. What does the first one do? Do we have a Space Force that we don't know of?
Well, and the third and the fourth.
Yeah.
How many do we actually have?
I don't know. They're in the process of getting 2 SOPs. That's the second Space Operations Squadron, trained up on how to operate the GPS-3 vehicle. So number 1 is launched. Number 2 is launched. Number 3, on May 27th, the Air Force declared SV-03 available for launch. It's now in its final preparations for shipment with an expected launch date of January 2020 aboard a Falcon 9 rocket. Now, number 4, the Air Force has declared that SV-04 is available for launch and is now in storage awaiting a launch date. I don't know about you, but that sounds like firmware is going to expire on this thing before they get it launched.
I don't know that they actually update the firmware that often.
I know, but it's just funny. Okay, we got it already. Let's just push it over here until we're ready to put it in the air. Okay. SV-5, the 5th satellite, is wrapping up its environmental tests. Lockheed Martin anticipates it'll be available for launch early next year. We're still going, Daryl. We're not done yet. Do you remember how many satellites in a constellation?
Well, there's 32, I think, in total.
I think, well, there's 24 for a constellation with up to 8 spares for 32.
Okay. But these are, they're not going to replace everything that's up there with the 3s.
Right. But these brand new 3s are launching. SV-06 satellite has moved into the thermal vacuum testing chamber. That sucks.
Well, I just love the name of that. It's like the thermal vacuum testing chamber. This is our new torture chamber for the next Bond movie.
The TVTC, of course. It has begun a rigorous testing campaign before it meets the harsh environment of space. 7, 8, and 9 are on the assembly line. I mean, they're cranking these things through, it seems to me.
They are, but this is only the first round.
Right.
This is the first round with the new software. So these are the stock 3s, Roman numeral 3s. And they're going to give us the improved speed, which gives us the improved accuracy. They also have the improved signal. So if you have a newer GPSR, you'll get a better signal from them than you did with the other ones, and better building penetration. So there's all kinds of advantages that we're going to see a difference on, especially if we're using something like the smartphones. You don't even know what the software is that's running those GPSs in those phones. And they've got a lot of stuff that they're doing in there that's well ahead of the handhelds just because they're on such a frequent release cycle.
Right. Right. And, it's like a duck sitting on the water. It looks so calm. Oh, I just opened up the GPS app and off I go. It's doing a lot under the hood.
Yeah. Yeah. And the chipsets every year just get better and better and better and support more and more stuff. But yeah, we are looking at another round of the 3s, but this is going to be the 3F. So the 3F, they're talking about up to 22 3F satellites. And it's going to add some more features and better resiliency to the 3 design, which, is to be expected. The 3 was the first. And before we actually put out the next batch of 22, let's make sure we fix it. Anything that didn't work quite like we wanted.
Features? Like S stands for,
I think so.
Apple. Yeah. They're
or fixed.
Okay. Oh, fixed. Okay.
Fixed. We fixed the bugs.
Nice.
But yeah, and also remember that these are all software upgradable, firmware upgradable, whereas the 2s and earlier were not. I think the 2F was also software upgradable.
I don't recall that. I only recall the 3s being upgradable, but I am not.
That was the big thing with the 3s. But I'm not sure that I think the 2Fs did have software upgradability, but not to the same level that the 3 had. Like, as I recall, the 3, they can pretty much reprogram the whole thing. So it's like your entire firmware. Whereas like the 2s, you could only reprogram like the broadcast software.
Right. Something in the user space, not in the...
Yeah, you couldn't take it down to the like modem level if you're familiar with the
bare metal and start over.
Right. Yeah, there's certain things that were protected.
Which, it's pretty harsh up there. I mean, if you have a micro asteroid come and hit a portion of your satellite and, cause a short circuit, you don't want all that to be wiped.
Well, I think if that actually happens, the satellite's probably toast anyway.
I don't know. They build them very robust. They put them in a vacuum chamber.
Well, yes, it's called space.
Well, but before they go up there.
Well, yes, that's just called seeing if it doesn't explode when it goes into space.
Oh, hey, can we take one more question from our audience?
I was going to say we have one from Ian that we should probably hit on. And this is going back to our discussions earlier about the GPSRs and the previous show. And can we make fun of Ian for a little bit? No. I hope he doesn't mind, because I just want to have fun.
Okay.
He said he's never cached with a GPS before. So does he mean he's never actually gone caching with a satellite, or that he doesn't actually cache from the satellites? Like maybe he's using the printout with the satellite views. Remember doing that?
Yes, I do.
That was so much fun. Anyways,
so got to be on that picnic table. That's right.
Yeah, it's like literally you're like
you look and somebody's moved the picnic table.
Okay, this is a picnic table, and I was printing out black and white laser printer pages and going into the field to do FTFs. Some of the most fun I had with FTFs for sure. All right, so if I've never cached with a GPS before, but would like to start using one for specific cache trips, would a 64 ST suffice to start? I've been considering getting one. That's probably seriously overkill as a starter unit.
Yeah. I tend to think that might be nice, though.
No, absolutely. This is not a starter unit. You're getting a good GPSR that's probably going to last you, I hate to say it, but probably 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Give or take, depending on your usage and software and everything. But most of those GPS maps units last for a long time. Most, not all.
Daryl?
Yes.
I'm I just wanted to defend Ian here.
Okay.
If I go to the Garmin website, I look at the Oregon 700 and it says it's a rugged GPS handheld.
Okay.
Not GPSR, as we say, for receiver, but
oh, really?
Yeah, it's a GPS handheld.
Huh. Okay.
So there you go.
I just, especially coming off the GPS story, just thought,
I know.
I got this vision of him like dragging the GPS behind him. That's how you get the actual satellite. That's how you get the best reception.
Exactly. You have one with you.
Right. You carry it with you.
And that means you're only doing park and grabs.
Roger said start with the eTrex 20 or above. I personally prefer, I shouldn't say that all the way around, but I personally like caching with the eTrex because my eTrex 30 is as good as my 62 was for most of the caching, and it's so much smaller. It's not as fast, but it's smaller.
And I have to say that Roger has one of the best looking avatars I've seen in quite some time.
On YouTube.
So thank you, Roger. Ian, okay. Your answer here answers some of my questions. He says, I cash with some crazy people that have used the same GPSR. He got it, Daryl.
Yes, he did.
15 plus years, and they always pick on me for cashing with my phone when we're out together. Ian, what I would do is next time you're out cashing with them, just grab their GPSR right out of their hands and start using it. See what you like. Do you like buttons? Do you like touchscreen?
Well, and that's a good point as well, because the 64s and the eTrex 32 that we were talking about are not touch units. They're the buttons, which I actually prefer, in part because they work very well with gloves, and the touch screens do not. So if you get the eTrex Touch series, which I can't remember off the top of my head any of those model numbers, or the Oregon
35.
30 Touch 35. Okay, yeah. So they call it the Touch.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you get the touch units,
10, the eTrex 10.
Yeah, the 10. I wouldn't get anything below the 30 if you're caching with other people.
There it is. The eTrex 22X or 32X.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I wouldn't get anything below the 30s if you're caching with other people who have Garmin units, because those are the ones that have the ant. So you can actually send waypoints back and forth, which I generally find pretty handy. And Ian says that buttons are what he thinks he prefers. I wish I knew the old school model that they use, but the only one I've ever used when I'm out there with them, they might still be using that 60 CSX.
Yeah, they might be. And then once you determine if you're a button or touchscreen kind of guy, go buy the most expensive GPS you can afford. Right? So like eTrex, now in the 22 and the 32. And
and I will say one other thing though, about spending the most that you can afford. You do want to make sure that you're getting the right form factor too, because if you like the eTrex because it's small, don't go to the 60, because it's going to probably be more cumbersome than you want, and vice versa. If you like the 60 and the 30 is too small, definitely go that way, or the Oregons, whatever. But when you're buying in that product line, unless you really want to use the topo maps, don't buy the T's.
Right.
And the topo maps are only for like the US.
That's a good point. It's not North America. I think it's only the US.
Yes. Now, I think they do have some of the T units available for other countries now, but I would not recommend spending the money on it. That said, I do have a bunch of the T models myself, in part because I wanted, on the earlier ones, I wanted the extra storage capacity that they gave you.
That used to be the issue. But you can go and buy the topo maps afterwards. If you go, man, I really should have gotten the T model, you can go buy and download those topo maps and install them on a SD card.
Yeah. Now, the difference, though, is I don't know if they still are doing it this way, but the topo maps you get in the GPSRs are different than the topo maps that you get off the shelf. I don't remember what it was. However, if I remember correctly, I will say the ones you buy off the shelf are higher resolution than the ones that were included.
Oh, I think you're probably right, because you can't download the whole thing.
Yeah, and it was much lower performance too. So you'd end up waiting for the maps to actually load, because it was more data that it was pumping in. But Ian says that he caches with a giant Galaxy S9 Plus, so big is probably good. which I can see that one. And also asked if anyone here has an opinion on the Bird's Eye satellite view subscription service. I've only used it in one of the earlier versions and was not impressed with it. Have you had any current experience with it?
I have not. I think I got a free month or something subscription to it.
Yeah, you usually get a free trial when you get a new unit.
And I thought, oh, this is cool. And really on that small screen, now the phone wasn't any bigger at the time, but the screen on the phone was better resolution. And I found the Google Maps to be more updated.
Well, and the other problem that I've had with the Bird's Eye was they were so far out of date. They were several years old that it really wasn't worth it. And it was very painful to download and install. So I don't want to say no, because I'm sure they've fixed a lot of these things. But, if you get the free trial, like Roger was saying, the high-end units include at least a year subscription to Bird's Eye.
Mm-hmm.
Give it a shot. And if you're getting a new 64, 66 series, chances are you're going to get some kind of free subscription. Give it a shot. The maps will expire and you can't use them. So make sure to go and upgrade it.
Yeah.
Update with something else.
Now,
and that's the other thing. I actually prefer the OpenStreetMaps to the maps that come on the unit or that you can buy for it, because I think they do a better job, and it has a lot of those trails on the OpenStreetMaps. And the trails don't come on the regular routable maps for the Garmin, and the topo maps aren't routable anyway. But typically on the topos, I don't get the trails, only the contours. So I prefer around here, because the contours aren't as useful because it's pretty flat, to have those trails from OpenStreetMaps. And, they're free. It just takes some work to load them.
There you go. Okay, so Ian, I've been doing some homework for you. You're welcome. If you want a big screen, the biggest one is the Montana by Garmin. And I believe the least expensive is the Montana 610. That's at $500 for a 4-inch screen. If you're willing to go to 3-inch touchscreen, then you're looking at the Oregon. If you want a 3-inch touchscreen a 3-inch screen with buttons, you're looking at the 66 series. The 64 series has a 2.6-inch screen, and the eTrex has a 2.2-inch screen.
Yeah, the eTrex by far is the smallest, and that's why I like it. It's small. It's not as fast as some of the better units were, but certainly faster than the like Oregons that I used to have. So it is my go-to unit. It's small. It's easy to use one-handed. I just grab that and leave it around my neck and never touch it when I go out caching.
See how easy it is to use? He doesn't even have to touch it.
Right. It's one of those annoying things that's like, I'm going to go and take my unit. I'm going to use it. I'm logging on the phone. Going to the next cache. And, 3 caches later, I realize, oh, I forgot to go to the next cache.
Ian says, Daryl and Chris, I appreciate you both. Thanks for the info, despite picking on me. Well, we only pick on those we like.
Very true. No, and thank you so much, everyone. And if anyone does have info on the Bird's Eye satellite view subscriptions, please send us an email at geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com. Let us know what your thoughts are on that. We'll include them in a future show, but it's geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com. We'd love to have it. But Chris Brew, MC Cats.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Okay. And this is one of the problems, is that I don't recognize a lot of the actual names. I know the caching names. But
in case you want to know, he's the current president of the Washington State Geocaching Association. So I would say his suggestion carries a little more weight than just your average geocacher, like, say, Ian. Sorry, Ian, I did it again. I said I wasn't going to, and I did. I couldn't resist.
Well, and here's what I'm thinking. If you have any problems with any cache in the state, you can go and talk to Chris.
Exactly.
Because he's the one who's the president. He
And
can push the right buttons.
That's MC3 Cats. That's not Chris of the Northwest. That's completely different. Yeah.
No.
And MC3 Cats, you're welcome.
All right. Anyway, MC3 Cats is saying that the GPS Map 64X is the way to go. I would go for the SX based on what I was just looking at, because that's the one that has the compass and the ant.
Okay. The ant is important. I was going to say the compass.
The compass I really like having.
Yeah, you're right. So the X does not have the altimeter and compass.
Right.
The SX does. And then the CSX includes a camera.
Right. And it would not do the CSX.
No.
So the CX or SX is, I think, the sweet spot in that line and the one that I would personally buy.
So it says, I'm just reading off the Garmin website. With smart notifications, you can wirelessly receive emails, text, and alerts from your paired compatible device. Stay connected without having to dig into your backpack for your smartphone.
Yeah, it does have Bluetooth, if I remember.
It's got some Bluetooth link there.
Right, but it's basically just pulling the notifications that come over Bluetooth. So the same thing that worked on like the old stereos in your car.
Mm-hmm.
That allowed the car to read the text message because it's sending you the text message. That's all it does, if I remember correctly. And I seem to remember that people had a lot of trouble with those.
Daryl, I'm getting a call from the WSGA. I think my membership has been canceled.
Oh, jeez. All right, maybe we should wrap it up. Oh, Wet Coaster says your paired device, not your Apple device.
Interesting. Let me take a look at the. Let's see, where was it?
I was going to say check the specs on that because I do remember that
on your compatible device. Let's see.
Yeah, I do remember that there were some of these Android phones that had the ant that were specifically doing this kind of stuff.
There's a big red banner at the top of the page. It says, "Attention iPhone users. If you're having an issue with your Garmin watch after upgrading to iOS 13, click here." So Android 5.0 or later, iOS 11.0 or later. But
not 13.
It's later.
It is. But they just said if you're having problems with your... Yeah. Now, anytime you upgrade, it's going to be a boatload of problems, and iOS 13 has been a nightmare.
Yes, it has. I've chosen not to go that way just yet.
No, I've done it on my iPad, but I've had my coworker had it forcefully installed on his.
Nice.
And Renee accidentally didn't dismiss it, and it installed on hers.
Okay.
Both of them are not happy about it, but Renee is finding features that she actually likes.
I mean, you can, jailbreak it and downgrade, but that's the only way to do it. MC3 Cats goes on to say that the 62 and the 64 GPS maps are the grandchildren of the 60 CSX, which we consider the gold standard of all GPSRs.
Right. And from what I'm understanding about the hardware on the 66, it is not. It's a substantial change.
Oh, interesting.
From that hardware. It's a different antenna. It's different board design and everything. And that's part of, I think, why it's been a problem. Well, I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing.
Boo.
We'll have to see. But I think some of those changes were intended to make it easier to pair the InReach hardware onto it. Because I haven't seen any teardowns on the 66i.
So on the 66S, ST, and I, you can download the bird's eye satellite imagery with direct-to-device downloads and no annual subscription.
Really?
That's what it says.
That's interesting.
Expanded wireless connectivity supports active weather for up-to-date forecasts and animated weather radar and geocaching live for your mobile and syncing updates.
Yeah, and that's one of the really cool things that I did like on the I is the thought of being out there with that emergency two-way radio and the weather. But the weather doesn't come in over that radio. You still have to use your phone, as I understand.
MC3 Cat says the 66 is from a different family. How do you know that? I'm just curious. He knows a cashier who uses the 66 and it has some OS issues.
Yeah.
I want to say it's probably the Oregon based OS.
It's
the touch interface.
They've switched to, I think it was a Linux kernel for the Oregon series, and then the 62s and up all use that. So they did make a switch a while ago to a different OS, but not all OSs are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the problems that they've had has been getting the OSs to work right on the new hardware.
Right.
And
any 60 CSX users I know don't consider the 62s or the 64s an upgrade, more of a downgrade.
Right. Well, the 60 CSX was a bare bones unit that just worked. That was on the old OS. Didn't really support geocaching. There were some hacks to make it work, but you didn't have the full paperless caching. It had a pretty basic geocaching functionality that was kind of nice. A lot easier go of it than with the newer OSs. That said, I would definitely prefer a 62 or 64. And I have a 62. I also have a 60.
Daryl, again, Ian, I'm helping you out. I just Googled Garmin 60 CSX, clicked on an Amazon site, and there are used ones in the $140 range.
Yeah, I would not recommend doing that unless you're a CSX user looking for a replacement. Because at this point, those are a little bit more challenging to use because you do need something like GSAC to load the caches. You don't need GSAC, just something, some waypoint manager on a computer to load it.
Yeah, you can get the the eTrex 30X at about the same price, and that's new.
Yeah.
Compared to used.
Yes. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this one because, well, we're running long. Next week, we're going to be talking about DNFing caches, when and why we log our DNFs. So send your strategy why you do or don't log a DNF to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com by October 22nd. Do that, and we're likely to share it on the show, and you might win a geocache from Logworks. That's geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com by October 22nd with your approach to DNF logs, but make sure you include your geocaching name and mailing address as well.
That's right. And until next week, make sure you check out the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the Geo Gearheads, including show notes for this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com or through the many channels of social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniac shows. Geo Gearheads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. This show's copyright 2019 by Daryl Wattenberg, all rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.